now we want to talk about validity. Validity is a little bit more complicated than reliability. So first of all, there are many types of validity, but for the simplicity of this course, I just would like to compare and contrast internal validity versus external validity. So I'm going to start with internal validity, and I'm going to use an example. So let's pretend we want to study self-esteem. So we're studying self-esteem, and researchers have to come up with number one over there on the slide, tells us conceptual definition. How do we conceptualize, how do we define self-esteem? So if we're studying, we got to be clear. What do we mean by self-esteem? So here what I wrote down, positive or negative, and a negative orientation towards oneself, an overall evaluation of one's worth of value. So some of you might argue and say, well, hold on a second, that's not my definition. This is too short. This is too narrow. So even at the level of conceptual definition, when we study aggression, when we study emotion, what do we mean by that? So after conceptual definition, when we try to define what it is that we are studying, we have to come up with operational definition, which is number two there on this slide. Operational definition meaning now, given that we have conceptual definition, how are we going to go about measuring self-esteem? So we would come up, let's pretend if it's a question that we're interviewing people, or we give them a questionnaire. So then what we say, well, there's item one, question number one, question number three. By asking all those questions, we will tap into what we conceptualize as self-esteem. So why are we talking all about this? Okay, so let's actually look at the legitimate and official, one of the many scales or tests that represent those items, how we measure self-esteem. So here I'm just going to read some of this. I feel that I am a person of worth, at least on the equal basis with others. And then you have options, strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and you pick your choice. So this is the measurement item. This is our test, how we go about to figure out your score on self-esteem. So let's look at some other one. Number 7, on the whole, I am satisfied with myself. Agree, disagree, and so on. So these are the items. This is our test. Now the question is about validity. Is our test valid measurement of self-esteem? It's a credibility. Validity means a credibility of your measurement. So going back to this, how many of you feel like, well, hold on a second, 10 questions and you will give me a score on self-esteem? So it's like that may be not complete for some of you, and justifiably so. What are the relevant components that possibly are missing in those 10 questions? So when we look at somebody else arguing, well, there's a positive self-image, of course, negative self-worth. That's what we addressed in the questionnaire that I show you. But self-protection, self-sustaining, self-preservation, what else we have? Self-expression. Those are maybe also components of self-esteem, but they're not represented in 10-item scale that I showed it to you. So as researchers, we continuously have to be worrying about the validity of our measurements, just like you are the consumer of our research. When we come and we write an article that will be paraphrased in Time magazine or in Oregonian or in some websites, we're saying this is what researchers have found. So then you need to ask, what are the measurements that they use to study aggression, to study self-esteem, job performance, and so on? Are those measurements valid? Meaning, are they really credible? Are they measuring what we really intended to measure? That's validity. So again, do our instruments, our procedure, measure what we intend to measure? So let me give you some other examples in addition to self-esteem. So let's pretend you are studying mathematical learning, how students, how well they do in math in school. And then your tests include only multiplication. Well, math has too many components depending on what level of math you're taking. So you have a measurement. You might have a score of math performance, but is the measurement valid? Is it including all the other components of mathematical ability? Another one, so if you're hiring somebody to be a school teacher, let's say a science teacher, and during interview you only asking them about physics, let's say. Well, if it's a science teacher, they're probably going to teach biology, and you didn't ask anything. So you will have a score of teacher's competence in science, but the measurement is not really valid because it didn't consider all the components. It's not measured what's really we're supposed to measure.